Let's start off. So security and user experience have often been at odds with one another. It was always a choice of either or. You could be really secure, or you could have a solution that your users would actually tolerate. And we're at a point now where that choice doesn't have to be made. That trade-off doesn't have to be made. With the good platform, what opportunities do you see for organizations to be able to take advantage of strong security and your solution? Let me start with you.
It's a great question, John, and thank you for having us here today.
Yeah.
We've been in the business for 15 years, but today we see our customers wanting to extend their enterprise apps and enterprise content to the mobile platform, and so we have customers that have unique security requirements that Good allows us to provide that solution for them.
Not bad.
Sure, thank you. So what I think we're experiencing or seeing our customers struggle with is the transition from desktop computing to BYOD, where they've kind of lost control of the security, and then you have to wean them from picking anything from the App Store and using it into something that's secure and managed. And Good Dynamics is a beautiful solution that lets you do that, and all of us are working hard to make sure that it's as easy for the users as possible.
And on the security side of the house, now, oftentimes, security's been an integration exercise. Remember enterprise application integration, the multi-million-dollar, multi-year projects that never came to fruition? Thank God we're past that. Talk to me a little bit about CellTrust and your ability to integrate, your solution into a broader workflow of other applications.
Absolutely. Well, thanks to the amazing platform provided by Good, we have the ability to do tracking of text messages that go back and forth, as well as voice communications. If you think about it, a lot of organizations these days, as things have evolved, just as Good has evolved to have applications throughout the platform and be able to empower all different sorts of applications. Organizations are dealing with lots of different types of information, not just email now. And thanks to the platform, we have the ability to secure SMS and text messages, so organizations that have to provide reporting and auditing for those things, we can allow them to do that with their Good container, everything in the Good container.
So public sector, financial institutions, folks that have e-discovery requirements, all of a sudden don't have to say, oh wait, I can't use SMS.
Exactly, or that I don't have to worry about disclosure responsibilities for financial transactions or government decision-making, procurements and things like that have e-disclosure requirements.
Very nice, very nice. Now, from the iTrust perspective, you guys have a great biometric authentication solution. For those of you familiar with Apple's Touch ID on the iPhone 5S, the developers conference this year, they rolled out an interesting statistic saying that only 23% of users actually had the 4-digit PIN code on their device. So, 4-digit PIN code already, borderline useless in terms of strong security, but only 23% of users had that enabled. Since the iPhone 5S has come out and Touch ID, 87% of users are making use of that biometric ID. And if you've been doing this a while, you know darn well that it's not because 60% of users have suddenly gotten religion about security, but rather, there's a cool factor to it. It doesn't, disrupt their user experience, and so they're finally doing it. I think your solution falls into that same camp in terms of it being a great user experience, and certainly there's a little bit of a James Bond factor to it as well.
Right. Yeah, the movies. It's like the movies. So when you talk about the trade-off between security and usability, passwords and password pain is the ultimate example of that trade-off. You can let users have a 4-digit numeric PIN, which is completely insecure, or you can let users force them to use a 16-character complex password, which they constantly forget and reset. But with biometrics and iVerify's iPrint ID integrated in the Good framework, you don't have that trade-off anymore. It can be easy as taking your picture and yet as secure as a 50-character password. And
as a how big password?
50-character password, complex.
All right.
So users don't have to enter that, of course. It's just magic when they take their own picture. So what's really cool for iVerify and working with Good on this, though, is if we had to go out to individual enterprises and do an integration effort into their infrastructure, that's a lot of evangelizing, that's a lot of work, that's a project queue, whereas integrated in the Good platform, all folks have to do is go into the console, hit the space bar, and they're good to go.
Awesome, awesome. I've been doing security for, 7 or 8 years, and I probably know a half a dozen developers that I would trust on their own to actually implement a strong crypto system. It's complicated, it requires a lot of knowledge, and to think that two developers, even who are knowledgeable, would implement one consistently is a big ask. One of the neat things about the platform, of course, is it provides you these services that you can take advantage of so that you don't have to worry about becoming a crypto expert or learning the innards of, say, accessing a SharePoint server. Talk to me a little bit about what the services that the platform avails to you, what kind of difference it made in terms of your developers being able to be productive and kind of focus on their core tasks.
So Excelion, with Kiteworks, we're a Gartner Magic Quadrant leader. But the challenge is we've offered end user capabilities for editing content, accessing content, sharing content cross-boundary between the organization and externally. But when we talk about to customers that are good, that have bought into the good framework for email and usability, integrating that into our system was very easy with the Good Dynamics platform, and enabled the customers to solve unique problems, specifically to maybe board members or to end users. So it's a very special integration.
Reed, how about you? I mean, did your developers experience any productivity gains in terms of being able to stay focused on kind of their core mission?
Well, absolutely, because what we've found is that every enterprise has their own suite of security technologies, and with Good, there's a uniform set of solutions and a uniform set of policies that are pushed out, and so our conversation is much more about productivity than about someone's individual choice of security. So a huge time saver for both the customer and for our team.
Excellent, excellent. Now, you guys do have security expertise, and yet you guys are taking advantage of some of the security services as well. Yeah. Talk to me a little about that.
I mean, a great example is right now, Cell Trust has been working quite a bit on our new release, built into the Good container, and we've been really amazed how much we can make a use of all of the other. There's so many services from presence to directory listings to all different sorts of things that don't need to be redeveloped, that would take a long time to provide all of those services. But we can make use of all of those foundational services and extend our capability even faster and, with perfect quality, very good quality, of course, from the Good platform.
So let's be explicit. Let's take your example, presence, as the example. So how would presence help your company integrate the solution into, say, a group of custom apps that organizations have created, along with, some of the other apps that they may have in their portfolio?
Well, the next generation of applications that we see coming, that a lot of our customers are implementing, both government organizations and regulated industries are doing their own apps that might have, some special functionality, but they need a secure framework like the Good platform to be able to build it on, right? But inside that application, they want to be able to build something like call John. They see John's picture, they want to tap on John's picture, and they want to send an SMS, right? And be able to send a text message to you, but still have it meet their regulatory compliance issues around having it recorded or audited in case something happens, or e-discovery or reporting. If you became president of the United States and they had to, disclose all of that information.
No danger there. So all controlled through policy, I assume?
All controlled through policy.
And on the iVerify side, I assume there's a ton of integration that has to occur for all the devices that you want to support when you deploy iVerify.
Right.
It's just deploy the app, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So what's nice about the iVerify solution is it works on any device that has a 1 megapixel camera, right? So that's Android, iPhone, tablets, smartphones. So we want to give it that broad scale.
But it probably works different on each device.
Right. So what's nice is with the Good platform, it's just easy for customers to turn it on without having to worry about all those device dependencies. And then also across the application layer as well, whatever applications from Good, from ISVs, from their own internal enterprise applications, it works across that scale. So it scales very easily in 2 different dimensions that are really important.
So one of the things that Chris just pointed out is super important. As you deploy solutions across the different OS platforms that you have in your organization, again, back to that theme of support costs, when solutions work differently platform to platform and someone calls your help desk, you either have to have all of your help desk folks trained not only in all the applications, but then in all the different OS permutations for all the applications. One of the nice things about this environment, of course, is that regardless of what device they're using, regardless of what OS that device happens to have, users have a very consistent experience, which makes it much cheaper and easier to support.
Oh, and one note on that, from an ISV developing in the good environment, we do a lot of good things with authentication, multi-LDAP, AD, but when you talk about multi-factors, we just can't build everything for all the customers. So when we go into a customer and they might have, iVerify or CAT card or whatever type of second factor, it's much easier for us to leverage the services framework.
Yeah, and that's really what it's about, is making it easy both for you as a developer, but perhaps most importantly, for you as a consumer of those solutions.
Right, I would point out, right, that one of the things we've seen in enterprise mobility is a lot of conversation about security. So we've sat here for a while and talked about security. With good dynamics, once you've bought it and made the decision, you have your security taken care of, you can get to your real business, which is user productivity.
Great point, great point. I'm going to ask one more question, and then we'll take a question from the audience. Protecting data, protecting organizational data, while respecting end-user privacy, which has recently become, I think, more of a focus, certainly in North America. In Europe, it's actually been more of a legal protection that's existed for quite some time, and it's been one of the reasons why solutions like MDM are problematic for organizations, or at least cause them pause. Now that it's no longer, you can do both of these things, how does that open up opportunities for your respective solutions?
I mean, for Excellion, we have customers that are unique, again, to Good, that Good helps us solve problems that we couldn't solve on our own. So for us, it's opening up, I'm going to say, new markets, but really our ability to solve problems for customers that we couldn't normally solve. Specifically because your framework, your ability to lock down your environment. And with Excellion, if you look at the Magic Quadrant, we're the only product in that Magic Quadrant that can be on-premise as well as cloud. But being on-premise allows us to integrate with your application and to really secure that content.
And the content in the application remains in the Good secured environment.
That's right. That's right. We actually have Good customers that have two implementations. One that's only in the Good environment, one that obviously leverages Good, but allows us to also share cross-boundary outside the organization.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is a financial institution, a bank that does boardroom and user file sharing.
Yeah, so the user, right, can keep their content in the non-Good apps, and you're not worrying about them as an enterprise. You're not necessarily responsible for backing them up, and you're not going to wipe them, because if you apply Good policies to all of our apps and all the other apps in the ecosystem, that's the stuff that you care about. So it puts a nice line in the sand between personal content and business content, and gives enterprise IT the tools they need to manage all that.
Well, and certainly for the two of you, especially, your firms have a customer base beyond just the enterprise. So I would imagine there's cases where users have both kind of the non-enterprise and enterprise version of your offering.
Absolutely, right.
Yeah.
Sure.
And how about for you guys? What kind of opportunities are opened up as a result of being able to?
This separation concept, which is a foundation to Good's technology, really provides the cornerstone of the value proposition for Cell Trust. Because if you think about this concept of separation of corporate data from personal data, and being able to separately protect it, separately monitor it, control it, wipe it if the device is lost, all of these things, right? That naturally extends to the use case of the users that we jointly work with, because they usually realize that they not only have to do this for the data, but they also have to do it potentially for auditable communications. So, typically a joint customer that does Good and Cell Trust would do something similar to have a separate number and separate SMS address that only comes to the Good container, as an example, through our joint solution. So they can get their personal texts in there from their wife, and please pick up milk on the way home, and that's in their personal text box. But their business text messages are over in the Good container, and it's only available from there. So that separation.
So if I'm an organization and I'm using Cell Trust, I'm using iVerify, and I'm supporting Bring Your Own Device initiative, it by no means precludes the end user from using messages or their 4-digit PIN for all their personal stuff, and in no way is your solution getting in front of their personal stuff.
Exactly, separated.
Right. If they want to have a PIN of 1111 to get into Angry Birds, and then they want to have the 50-character, equivalent iPrint to get into their VPN, they can do that.
I can't tell you how many people have actually approached me in airports and other places who have seen me use iVerify, and they're like, where do I get that? Let's take a question from the audience. We've got a few microphones floating around, and I'll be honest, I can't see them, but they're out there, I've been told. Any questions here that we'd like to get for our panelists on the security side, on the document side, on the app side? I can't really see up here, so I'm going to rely on our host to do this, or Kevin. Anything? No? Okay, we'll keep plowing along. If you have a question, we'll have another opportunity at the end here. Okay, so there's now I mentioned earlier, our customers have created over 1,300 apps on the Good Dynamics Secure Mobility platform so far. How do you see the integration with the solutions that you're providing, and in the integration with the solutions that organizations are creating custom? What kinds of problems classes of problems do you see now being able to solve as a result of that integration capability?
Yeah, it's a great question. When you think about Accellion, you think typically of a COTS product that you're basically an end user product, but what we're really trying to spin into a new solution is this mobile content platform built with APIs and SDKs, so your customers can actually use our services that are published with Good to actually integrate access to Salesforce, Jive, OpenText, Documentum, really any backend content share with applications on the mobile device.
Sorry, through shared services like the ones John's talking about, we can take care of the file access and security on that side of the servers and empower developers from your enterprises to create things faster. And in today's environment, you need to crank out apps at a high rate of speed.
Because everyone's so patient.
Everyone's impatient. Well, and the technology is changing and the world is changing. So the shared services and plus that security foundation, whatever you want to call it, of Good Dynamics, together gives a supercharging effect to enterprise app development.
So as our mutual customers are creating custom applications, they can essentially stand on your shoulders, leverage the services, and have integration and kind of the 1 + 1 = 3 type of model, as it were.
Right.
Exactly.
And I assume the same is true on the security side as well. I mean, the integration applies to all good secured apps. So.
Oh, absolutely. And as things change over time, as organizations have different groups that implement different pieces of technology, the integration doesn't break as normally does. Since Good provides an entire platform rather than one vendor having to do API integration with another vendor, there's a consistent platform and consistent user interface that underlies everything. So when something changes, it doesn't just break everything and you have to start from the beginning. Good is there to catch you when something goes wrong.
So one of the reasons that enterprises are creating those 1,300 apps I mentioned is for data that's even more sensitive than just email.
Yeah.
And so the use case that they really get concerned about is lost and stolen devices. That's the critical use case from a protection standpoint. And yes, you can wipe the device, but there's a time gap until the user has realized it and reported it. And with biometric, you can be sure that it's the real user and not a bad guy that has the device and the password and the card and the token, because that could all get stolen together very easily.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would observe, right, that the lost and stolen device is one use case, right, that affects everyone, but the escaping from the container is another kind of security
Leakage
concern
scenario.
that Good Dynamics has solved for all of us. So you have the freedom to operate because your content is secured by Good Dynamics in those apps. And if you're not developing enterprise, how many people are developing enterprise apps? Okay, not very many of you. I think that'll change in a year.
So as we think about these custom apps that people aren't yet developing, but the commercial apps that they're purchasing, one of the neat things, of course, is it's not a matter of figuring out which apps work with which solutions. Certainly on the security side, the authentication framework brings about possibilities for new authentication models, I would suspect, that were either cost prohibitive, hard to deploy. I was talking to someone at your firm, actually, who was talking to me about authentication futures and was talking about this concept of continuous authentication, where there's so many sensors now in a mobile device. You have an accelerometer, you have a camera, you have a microphone. It turns out if you're predominantly left-handed versus right-handed, you tend to carry the device at a certain angle in a certain way. And there's a bunch of exciting things that can happen here. And one of the things that your partner was telling me about was that the platform would allow explorations in these different spaces much faster, much more cost effectively to provide some rather unique authentication solutions. Without disclosing any future product plans, can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, that's an important part of the, everybody talks about the entry condition to authentication. Am I outside or am I inside the container? But the area that's really interesting is exit condition. So is it just a timer? Is it because I put the device down? Is it because the device is suddenly moving 30 miles an hour that way and I'm not? What are the exit conditions that are really more scientific and more useful than just, 30 minutes or 30 seconds?
So these aren't science fiction any longer. These are actually capabilities that are within the realm of
Definitely.
near-term possibility.
Yes.
And how about on the secure communication front? Where do you see this heading beyond? E-discovery is huge and it's important, but I assume you've got generation 3 and 4 and 5 in mind.
Well, it's very much, if you think about it, the whole market has been evolving the same way. What is old is new again every time. So for the longest time, it was, as you said earlier in your keynote, that the first thing was everybody wanted to get email on their mobile device, right? Well, now you've solved that problem. Everybody can get email on their device, but texting and communications in general, kind of a unified communications model where it's voice and text. The expectation of that being able to roam to wherever you go is becoming much bigger, and also kind of the transient device problem, the fact that if you go from the East Coast to the West Coast, or from one country to another country, you may switch phones, you may switch types of devices, you may switch entire access models, right? So kind of this same ability to be able to track and audit communications, but also to be able to securely communicate without any dependency upon the device. To really think about your identity linking to the communications that are linking to you. So if you pick up a phone in London and you buy a brand new phone and you activate it, if you can prove that you're John Dasher, you should be able to get all of John Dasher's communication sent to you, just the same way that you can get partitioned your good container and send everything else over the air. All of your other communications should come with it. So your call should automatically come to that phone and your SMS should automatically come to that phone. Forget about what the phone number is or the underlying technologies.
And I suppose an even more pedestrian example is, I'm using my Android phone and I'm communicating with somebody. I put the phone down, I go into a different room and I pick up my, iOS tablet.
Exactly.
There's not I can't continue this conversation because I'm on a different device, a different OS.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And all that's available to the enterprise app developers, all of you.
Very true. And as we think about, our friends at Aragon Research have done some great work on mobile content management and its importance in the enterprise, and certainly your two solutions are square in that space. How do you see the solutions that you provide going beyond, we started with file access. Okay, great, now I've got the file. Now I want to manipulate that file. Where do you see this heading in terms of users doing more than just viewing on mobile devices?
Well, we do that today, right? So we were one of the first to provide access and security. We were one of the first to provide built-in editing. We were one of the first to provide syncing so that you could have the most current content synced to your device, like new price lists or new airport maps or whatever your business is. And I think evolving to support the use cases and maybe even anticipate the user needs are the directions you'll see for content, so that you'll always have the stuff that you need at the time you need it and the place you need it, and maybe that you don't have the stuff that you don't need when you shouldn't.
And syncing in a similar context to what we were talking about earlier, where I pick up a different device and I've got something that I was working on device A when I pick up device B.
Yes. Yeah, a key function that we provide lets you turn off Dropbox, right? So we give you a secure, managed, on-premises solution that replaces Dropbox and lets you have all of your content on your mobile, on your desktop, through the web when you need it.
So the user can be using Dropbox personally for their family photos and all the rest of that, but still have a solution that's easy to use while they're in their enterprise environment.
It's built for their enterprise environment. It's managed by IT. Policies are applied, and audit logs are kept.
Can your solutions leverage, let's say, a SharePoint infrastructure as well as a NAS-based?
Sure.
It's not an either-or
I
type.
think this is a both of us.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're both kind of equal on that, where we can access SharePoint, access NAS. Excellient's taken it a little bit beyond that, where we're going to start to access Box or Dropbox data, because those are just realities, as well as SharePoint Online or OneDrive, because a lot of folks are going to Microsoft 365. And again, when you look at business data, business data is going to live in Salesforce or Jive.
Yeah.
So when you look at a mobile content platform and the APIs that are going to enable people to develop apps, as well as that COTS experience of really a beautiful end user experience of getting access to all that content, being able to maybe mix and match and share or edit that content, is really where we're going, and it's very, very exciting.
It's funny, like what our customers have asked us for is to be able to allow read-only access to cloud solutions, so they can force the user, hey, we're going to give you 30 days, suck your information out of Box into Acronis Access, and then we're going to disable that. So, in the end, like, our goal is to serve our customers' needs in their file movement workflows, but whatever it's evolving really fast.
So you can have time-based access to content?
Right. We push all kinds of policies from the server. Like, over 60 policies are managed based on AD group membership.
Okay.
And one of them is access privileges and expiration dates.
So let me see if I understand this, because IT gets calls all the time saying, Joe is joining us on this super secret project.
Yes.
Can you add him to the XYZ folder?
Yes.
IT gets those calls all the time. How many times do you get the corresponding call that says, Joe's no longer on this project, and you take him off the folder? This provides a way to do that somewhat cleanly.
We have a content expiration policy, right? And the migrate from Box was a customer request. That's not a feature announcement, I'll be clear about that. But that's how they wanted us to work. And all the stuff in Acronis Access has come because people like you said, hey, Reed, or hey, Brian, this is what we want to do, and we get that on the roadmap and evolve the product.
So how are you guys seeing, are you guys getting feedback from your customers that they're using mobile devices for more creation now rather than just viewing, or is it still predominantly viewing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, the viewing and or consuming content was really the first, stage, but today it's absolutely creation. And people really want to, replace the PC with these guys. They want to replace, in a sense, Microsoft. So they want to edit, create, share, present with the iPad or the Android device.
And I would say that it depends on the use case, because absolutely, originally the requirement was, hey, I need to look at my stuff.
Yeah.
And then it was, hey, I need to change the date on the PowerPoint. Okay, so we have built-in PowerPoint editing. But now, for some users, they need to edit and create from scratch, or they start, on the airplane and then they finish when they get back to their desktop. Right. And for other users, they're only consuming, right? They're reading technical manuals on the flight line, or they're reading announcements from the FDA. It really depends on your job, and that's why earlier I commented that the use case is where you're going to see a lot of evolution, and it's where our APIs empower enterprise apps to take advantage of our platform.
So, as we think about security, to what extent does the usability of a particular security solution affect the success of, say, a productivity app?
Right. Yeah, if it's not easy for the user to do it, they're just not going to do it. They're going to find another way. They're going to go around it or procrastinate. If all these cool features are hidden behind, complicated authentication that's hard for the user to do, they're not going to grab that 15 minutes in the airport to do something if it's going to take them 8 minutes to log in.
That's actually a really interesting point. I believe it was Forrester Research did some interesting research on the different modes that people get in while using a mobile device. And if you think about it very broadly, one is where I just need to look up something really quick, get a phone number, a piece of information. I might be in the tram at DFW going from Terminal A to Terminal D, and I've got 30 seconds. And the reality of it is, if the authentication mechanism or my company's using a, God forbid, a VPN, if getting on that takes 30 seconds before I can even get to the app that I want to use or data that's on the back end that I want to get to, users just won't do it. They will not be productive in that moment of need. And it's really interesting to study how and when people use devices. Very different on the tram than, say, when I'm sitting in the airplane and I've got an uninterrupted 2 hours. What we tend to do is different, but again, users' patience for things, quote unquote, getting in their way.
And a good example of that is offline mode, right? Because on that tram, you may not have radio, right? You may not have signal. And so if you need authentication that's going to require signal, then you're not going to go and check that document. Right. And that's why Good and iVerify work together to make sure that our biometric authentication supports offline mode completely, which I think is real important in the document case.
So I'm on an airplane, I'm in airplane mode, I've got no access, I can still authenticate to the applications, get at my data in your applications.
Correct.
While being offline.
Offline mode works just as well.
Excellent. Excellent.
Remember when we used to go into the office to catch up on email? So you don't have to do that anymore, and you shouldn't have to go into the office to catch up on anything.
I remember when email didn't follow me, yes.
Yeah. You got back from your vacation and it was all there waiting for you.
Yeah, exactly. Should we take any questions from the audience? I've got a couple more, but let me just pause for a second, provide the audience a chance. Any questions we have out there? Security, documents, applications? Okay, got a couple more here. How important do you guys find for your customers, for the folks here, how important is that integration between apps that might seem completely unrelated? It's more than just having them on the device, clearly. How do your customers voice the importance of that integration?
Truth is stranger than fiction, right? So you never know what people are going to want. If you think you know the use case, you're probably wrong for a lot of people. So the integration, empowers that use case.
You never know. I mean, you're walking into a customer, they might have a very unique situation that you didn't anticipate. And again, if they're part of the good dynamic environment, that's pretty easy to meet that demand.
The platform.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. The platform, I absolutely agree. You never know, not only is the use case different for different organizations, but within the organization, different roles have different,
Positionally.
Yeah, exactly. The adaptability is the most important thing for success in any application in the enterprise, which is why Good Dynamics provides such a good platform for development.
Yeah.
Reed, did you have an add, or?
I was just thinking about all the different crazy architectures that we hear about. I mean, one of the things that we all encounter these days is that organizations are geographically diverse, right? So our solution allows you to have a server close to wherever you are, so you don't have to come back to the U.S. And
reducing the latency.
That gives you the fast access time which you need for that 30 seconds that you have to try to do your little task. All of us have to be constantly thinking about flexibility and giving the user what they need really quickly. Mobile users are impatient, right? We are impatient.
Yeah, and we have, I think, 2 top 10 law firms, customers that we share, and legal firms are just notorious for just having weird applications, very unique business.
In terms of custom or?
IT applications to manage cases or
They're very
customers.
demanding.
Those partners are very demanding, yeah.
So one of the things that we talked about that Hemant was demoing when we were talking about services, and it's a little bit of an abstract concept, but it's kind of interesting. We all have heard the phrase, there's an app for that, and we, many of us, think in the context of an app. But one of the things that the platform provides is the idea that we can expose services to end users via policy, whether those are our web-based services that we've created to, say, access BI information on the back end. One of the interesting things about the platform is you can become an authentication system for something that's not even an app on device. You can be an authentication system for data that's being provided via a service.
Something that's just a service, right, because it used to be that when an enterprise thought about, let me stack up 3, 4, 5, 6 really powerful different apps and services, the pitfall used to be, well, now I'm also stacked up 5 or 6 complex passwords, which the user has to enter, or I can store them on the device in a way that's insecure, again, that password trade-off. But I love how Good has done the single sign-on combined with allowing different authenticators to be chosen by the enterprise. So they can say, I want to use this token or I want to use this biometric, and it spans all of those different services.
It's funny, one of the most oft-heard complaints of end users is that, oh, the Good's locked me out of my application again. And in fact, it turns out that there are a lot of policies, both on the security side and on the productivity side, that administrators can enforce. And I think all of you would agree that it's really important to understand what effect your policies have on the end users and their satisfaction, if you will, with the platform.
And they never admit that they typed their password wrong 10 times, and that's why they're locked out.
And the administrator never admits that they disabled them, right? Accidentally when they were doing,
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. Now, you're all next door and are available to have conversations with folks. So to the extent you think of something you want to discuss, all of these folks will be next door talking during the networking session. So I'd encourage you to reach out and grab them and talk about your particular needs.
And we'd love to give you trial software to try out.
Well, there you go.
That's right.
Free's good. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you.